Hello everyone. This is Dr. Nitika Gupta, your tutor for today, and I will be teaching you on the topic spinal cord injury. Spinal cord injury is the damage to spinal cord that causes changes in its function, either temporary or permanent. These changes translate into loss of muscle function, sensation, or autonomic functions in part of body served by the spinal cord below the level of lesion. Spinal cord injury is a low incidence, high cost disability requiring tremendous changes in an individual's lifestyle. It is estimated that approximately 11,000 new cases of spinal cord injury occur every year. That's huge, isn't it? Now we come to the causes. First and foremost important cause of spinal cord injury is trauma. It can be fall from the height or road traffic accidents, fracture dislocation of spine, etc. Other causes are disseminated sclerosis, subacute combined degeneration of spinal cord, syringomyelia, motor neuron disease, tuberculosis, transversus mellitus, syphilis, intramedullary and extramedullary tumors, Tapes dorsalis. Now comes the classification of spinal cord injury. They have classified spinal cord injury on the basis of functional loss. First is tetraplegia, when there is paralysis of all four extremities, trunk, including respiratory muscles, because of the lesion in cervical cord. And next is the paraplegia, in which complete paralysis of all or part of the trunk or both lower extremities result from lesion in thoracic and lumbar vertebrae and chordae equina. Another classification is according to the complete injury or incomplete injury. Complete injury means there is sensory and motor loss below the level of injury, and incomplete injury, it means that some of the sensory and motor functions below the level of injury will be spared. Next, Asia classification scale. They have classified the spinal cord injury in various categories according to A, B, C, D, E. A means the spinal cord is intact and no motor and sensory functions are impaired. B, C, and D says incomplete injuries, in which some or the other sensory or motor functions are lost. In E, the motor and sensory functions are intact. Next, we come to the clinical syndromes. First is Brown-Sequard syndrome. It occurs commonly as a gunshot injury or stab injury. It occurs from hemisection of spinal cord, although partial lesions are more frequent. On the same side of the lesion, there will be loss of sensation according to the dermatome wise. There will be loss of reflexes, loss of clonus. There will be positive Babinski sign. Loss of proprioception, kinesthetic sensations, and on the opposite side there will be loss of pain and temperature sensations. Next is anterior cord syndrome. In this, there is loss of motor function and sense of touch and temperature below the level of lesion. It is frequently related to flexion injury and fracture dislocation. Next is posterior cord syndrome. It is extremely rare, and in this, proprioception and kinesthetic sensations are lost below the level of lesion. Next is chordae equina injuries. It may be complete or incomplete lesions, although incomplete is more common. It's a type of lower motor neuron injury in which only peripheral nerves are affected. So sensory and motor nerves will be affected. Bladder will be of lower motor neuron type. Clinical features. Next, first clinical feature is immediately, which occurs as spinal shock, and in this period there is a period of areflexia, flaccidity, loss of sensation and motor functions below the level of lesion. It may last for a few weeks or days. Next clinical feature is motor and sensory impairment. In this, complete or partial loss of sensory and motor functions occur below the level of lesion. Autonomic dysreflexia, next clinical feature is, it is a pathological autonomic reflex that occurs in the lesion above T6. This reflex is activated by the presence of noxious stimulus below the level of lesion. And noxious stimulus can be pressure sores, bladder infections, temperature changes, etc. This is a medical emergency. In this case, first bring the patient to the comfortable position, remove the trigger agents, call medical assistance, and give drug therapy if needed. Next clinical feature is bladder and bowel dysfunction. It is of two types, spastic and flaccid. Spastic bladder occurs above micturition center S2, S3, S4 within conus medullaris, and there is a loss of upper motor neuron innervation. On the other hand, flaccid paralysis involves micturition reflex center and there is loss of low motor neuron innervation. Next clinical feature is sexual dysfunction. It is different in male and female. In male patients, erection may be psychogenic or fantasy, and there is impaired spermatogenesis and ejaculation. In female, menstruations are interrupted for a few months, but fertility is not impaired. Pregnancy is possible only under supervision. Next clinical feature is postural hypotension. It is also known as orthostatic hypotension. In this, there is decreased BP when the patient is assuming vertical position. For example, if the patient is in lying position, when he comes to the sitting position or in standing position, he will feel there is pooling of blood or lightheadedness or dizziness or fainting. Next clinical feature is impaired temperature control. It is the ability of the shiver is lost. It means when the patient is cold, he will not feel shiver, and if the patient is hot, he will not be sweating. So it is an important feature that is lost in spinal cord injury patients. Next is respiratory. If phrenic nerve is involved, then the patient will be on ventilator because spontaneous breathing will be lost. And if phrenic nerve is preserved, there are higher chances that other accessory muscles of respiration will be involved. Next clinical feature is spasticity. After the phase of spinal shock is over, there will be gradual increase in spasticity during first 6 months, and a plateau is reached by first year. Next, this is a list of secondary impairments. They are pressure sores, respiratory impairments, decreased range of motion, contracture tightness deformity, myositis ossification, osteoporosis, urinary tract infection, deep vein thrombosis, postural hypotension, autonomic dysreflexia, abnormal pain sensations, etc. Now comes the management in acute phase. First is prevention from respiratory complication. Complications differ according to the level of involvement. If phrenic nerve is involved, then the patient will be on ventilator. Then we have to train the patient with gallop breathing, and also we have to work on the strengthening of diaphragm with eccentric breathing. We can also recommend him spirometry, vibration and shaking can be done. Next, breathing with weight cuff over abdomen or by restricting movement by hand resistance. If the level of lesion is below C3 and phrenic nerve is not impaired, then chest wall mobility, chest expansion, assisted cuffing, huffing, these activities can be done, and the patient should be provided with chest PT every 4 hourly, followed by suctioning in case tracheostomy is done. Postural drainage is also important. Next is maintenance of range of motion and prevention of contracture tightness deformity. For the muscles which are intact, active range of motion is done, and for the muscles which are involved, passive range of motion is important. In case of cervical fracture, The therapist should limit the shoulder mobility to it should not be elevated above 90 degrees, and in case of lower thoracic or lumbar fractures, limit the hip movement to 70 degrees of flexion. Next aim is strengthening of weak muscles. The muscles which are intact, power training should be done, and muscles surrounding the fracture area, uh, their strengthening should be limited, and in paraplegia emphasize on upper extremity strengthening. Next aim is pressure sores, prevention of pressure sores. So proper changing of positioning is done every 4 hourly, and take care of the pressure sensitive areas, provide special beds, alpha beds, air beds, water beds should be provided, and maintain hygiene. It means proper antifungal, antibacterial powders should be should be put on patient's skin. The skin should not be damp. Prevent creases on bed sheet and patient's the clothes they are wearing. Next aim is to prevent deep vein thrombosis. For that, elastic stocking, pressure garments, elevation, ICT, passive movements, ankle pump should be done every 4 hourly. Next is the management in subacute and chronic phase. First aim is to prevent osteoporosis. For that, weight bearing with tilt table is done. Next aim is to prevent postural hypertension by grading raising to the vertical position. Provide abdominal binders to prevent peripheral pooling of blood. Next aim is to promote functional mobility by mat activities, ADL activities. Posture and balance training is done by external perturbation, standing frame, walking on parallel bars. Then we can also train the patient on medicine ball, Swiss ball, one leg standing, tandem standing or walking. EMG biofeedback, force plates can also be used. Next aim is wheelchairs should be provided. If the patient is having phrenic nerve involvement, then breath control wheelchair is provided, and if the involvement is below the level of phrenic nerve involvement, then motorized or simple motorized wheelchairs can be provided. In other cases, standard foldable and non-foldable wheelchairs can be provided. Next aim is to provide orthotic prescription and gait training to the patient. For the patients with lower cervical and upper thoracic region involvement, spinal attachment along with the HKAF4 support should be provided, and they should be standing on the standing frame. Physiological standing should be taught, and walking can be taught with the help of crutch. Swing twos and drag two movements can be taught. Next, in the patients with lower thoracic injuries, then functional emulation can be taught, and they can be provided with HKF4 or KF4 or AF4 as according to the problems. Next aim is gait training. Strengthening of upper extremity muscles is important for holding crutches, walkers and orthotic devices. Teach donning and doffing of orthoses. Stand in parallel bar with orthosis on. Teach stepping strategy, that is 3 and 2 point gait system should be taught. Balance training is done after parallel bar. Gait training outside the parallel bar is taught. Next aim is bladder and bowel care. For spastic bladder, stroking, kneading, tapping in suprapubic regions, thigh or lower abdominal stroking, pinching, hair pulling can be done. In case of flaccid bladder, Valsalva maneuver, Craig maneuver or intermittent catheterization can be done. Next aim is cardiovascular endurance improvement. For this, treadmill, breathing exercises, upper extremity ergonomic exercises, static cycling with the functional electrical stimulation, intensive spirometry, swimming, these activities can be incorporated. And last aim is home modification and barrier-free environment. For that, vocational counseling, vocational training, and psychological support is done. Thank you so much.